The sleeping pills weren't working anymore. I lay there in our king-sized bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a middle finger, which seemed appropriate considering how life was giving me the finger these days. Jenna's side of the bed was cold, empty, and had been for the past 3 weeks. Every night, same story. Working late again, honey, don't wait up. My name is Elliot Bishop, but everyone calls me Eli. I'm 38, own a small moving company called Bishop's Movers, and until recently, I thought I had a decent marriage. My wife Jenna manages operations at Riverside Shopping Plaza, one of those dying retail centers that somehow still limps along in our little upstate New York town of Millbrook. The front door creaked open at 11:47 p.m. I knew the exact time because I'd been watching the red numbers on our alarm clock, like they were counting down to my execution. Jenna's heels clicked across the hardwood floor, trying to be quiet but failing miserably. She always was terrible at sneaking. I heard her fumble with her purse, then the soft thud of her shoes hitting the floor. The bathroom light flicked on, and water ran for exactly 90 seconds, her usual routine when she was trying to wash off evidence. Evidence of what, I was still figuring out. She slipped into bed, her back to me, pretending to be asleep within minutes. But I could tell from her breathing that she was wide awake, probably staring at her phone under the covers. "How was work?" I asked into the darkness. Her body went rigid. "Fine, just the usual end-of-month reports." "Must be some pretty intense reports to keep you there until midnight." "You know how it is, Eli. Retail never sleeps." That was rich, considering half the stores in her plaza had been empty for 2 years. But I didn't push it. Not yet. The next morning, Jenna was gone before I woke up. No coffee made, no note, just the lingering smell of her perfume, a new scent I didn't recognize. Expensive, too expensive for our budget. I drove my pickup truck to the warehouse where I kept the moving trucks. Bishop's Movers wasn't exactly an empire, just me, my employee Lou, and 2 aging trucks that broke down more often than they should. But it paid the bills and kept me busy enough to ignore the growing cracks in my marriage. Lou Kowalski was already there, smoking a cigarette and reading the sports section of the Millbrook Gazette. Lou was 52, built like a refrigerator, and had spent 5 years upstate for armed robbery before going straight. He was the most honest man I knew, which said something about the world we lived in. "You look like hell," Lou said, not looking up from his paper. "Thanks for the pep talk." "I'm serious. When's the last time you slept?" "Sleep is overrated." I grabbed the clipboard with our jobs for the day. "We've got the Henderson move at 9, then the Patels at 2. "What's eating you, Eli? And don't say nothing, because I've seen you handle divorce moves that were less depressing than you are right now." Lou had a point. In the moving business, you see a lot of relationships falling apart. Half our jobs were people splitting up their lives into boxes and loading them into separate trucks. I developed a sixth sense for marital problems, and lately, that sense had been screaming at me about my own marriage. "Jenna's been working late." "A lot." Lou folded his paper and gave me the look, the one that said he knew more than he was letting on. "The plaza, right? Where that security guy works?" "What security guy?" "Damian Cross. Big guy thinks he's God's gift to women. Drives that ridiculous black SUV with the chrome wheels." My stomach dropped. "How do you know about him?" "Eli, this town has 3,000 people. Everyone knows everyone's business, and everyone's been talking about how your wife's been staying late with the musclehead security chief." I felt like I'd been punched. "Everyone's talking?" "Mrs. Falco next door to you called my cousin Rita. Said she's seen that SUV in your driveway twice when you weren't home." Mrs. Falco was 73 and spent her days watching the neighborhood like it was her personal reality show. If she said she saw something, she saw it. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Lou stubbed out his cigarette. "Because I was hoping I was wrong, and because I figured you'd figure it out yourself soon enough." That afternoon, after we finished the Patel job, I made a decision. Instead of going home, I drove to Riverside Shopping Plaza. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few cars scattered around the anchor stores that were still hanging on. Jenna's silver Honda was parked near the management office, along with a black SUV with chrome wheels that screamed compensation issues. I parked behind a dumpster where I could see the office windows. Lou had followed me in the moving truck, and he pulled up beside me. "This is probably a bad idea," he said through his open window. "Probably." We sat there for 20 minutes before I saw them. Jenna and a guy who looked like he lived at the gym, all muscles and spray tan and the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. They were standing close, too close, in front of the office window. Then he put his hand on her lower back and she leaned into him. "Son of a bitch," I whispered. They kissed. Not a friendly peck, not a casual thing. A real kiss. The kind that said they'd been doing this for a while. The kind that said my marriage was over even if I was the last one to know it. Lou was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What do you want to do?" I watched my wife of 8 years run her fingers through another man's hair, and something cold and calculating settled in my chest. "I want to make them pay." The next few days were torture. I had to pretend everything was normal while my world crumbled around me. Jenna kept up her act, coming home late, making excuses, acting like the loving wife when it suited her. But now I knew what to look for, and the signs were everywhere. New lingerie in the laundry, mysterious phone calls she took in the other room, credit card charges at restaurants I'd never been to. She was getting sloppy, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. I started my own investigation. First stop, Mrs. Falco. "Oh, Eli," she said when I knocked on her door Thursday evening. "I was hoping you'd come by." Mrs. Falco's house smelled like cats and old lady perfume. She led me to her kitchen window, which had a perfect view of my driveway. "I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news," she said, "but I've seen things." "What kind of things?" "That black truck. It's been in your driveway 3 times in the past 2 weeks, always when you're at work. And Eli..." She paused, looking uncomfortable. "I saw them through your living room window. They weren't playing cards." My jaw clenched. "When was the last time?" "Tuesday afternoon. They were there for almost 2 hours." Tuesday afternoon. The day Jenna had called to say she was getting her hair done. Another lie to add to the pile. "Mrs. Falco, if you see anything else..." "I'll call you immediately. That woman doesn't deserve you, Eli. Never did." The next phase of my investigation required Lou's special skills. Before his stint in prison, Lou had been what you might call technically inclined. He could hotwire a car, pick a lock, and apparently hack into someone's phone records. "This is probably illegal," he said as he connected Jenna's old iPhone to his laptop. She'd left it in the junk drawer when she upgraded, thinking it was wiped clean. Lou had other ideas. "Probably," I agreed. It took him an hour to recover the deleted messages. What we found made my blood boil. Text thread between Jenna and someone named D. "Jenna, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Eli will be at the Henderson job all day. D, your place or mine? Jenna, mine. More comfortable, and I love the risk. D, you're incredible. Can't believe you're wasting your time with that loser. Jenna, not for much longer. Just need to figure out the finances first." There were dozens of messages like that, going back 3 months. But the real prize was a group chat between Jenna and her 2 best friends, Sasha and Qley. Sasha, "So when are you going to leave him?" Jenna, "Soon. Damien's been pushing for it, but I need to be smart about this." Qley, "What do you mean?" Jenna, "Eli's business is worth more than he thinks. And there's the house. If I play this right, I can take him for everything." Sasha, "You're so bad." Jenna, "I'm pregnant." My heart stopped. Qley, "OMG, Damien's?" Jenna, "Of course it's Damien's. But Eli doesn't know that. He'll think it's his and won't fight the divorce." Sasha, "You're a genius." I stared at the screen, feeling like I was going to throw up. Not only was my wife cheating on me, she was planning to destroy me financially and trick me into supporting another man's child. There was just one problem with her plan. One detail she didn't know about. "Lou," I said quietly, "I need you to do me a favor." "Name it." "I need you to repo Jenna's car." "Repo it? On what grounds?" "I co-signed the loan and she's 3 payments behind. I checked this morning." Lou grinned. "Now you're thinking like a criminal. I like it." That night, while Jenna was at her book club, which I now knew was code for screwing Damien, Lou and I took her Honda. We didn't steal it. Everything was legal and above board. But when she came home at midnight and found her car missing, the screaming could probably be heard in the next county. "Where the hell is my car?" she shrieked, storming into the house. I was sitting in my recliner watching the late news. "Oh, what car?" "Don't play dumb with me, Eli. My Honda was in the driveway when I left." "Oh, that car. It got repossessed. Turns out you missed a few payments." Her face went white. "You can't do that." "Actually, I can. My name's on the loan, too, remember? And since you've been too busy with your book club to handle the finances, I took care of it myself." "This is insane. How am I supposed to get to work?" I shrugged. "Maybe ask one of your book club friends for a ride." I'm sure they'd be happy to help. The look she gave me could have melted steel, but she couldn't say anything without revealing the truth about where she'd really been. She was trapped, and we both knew it. I'm calling the bank in the morning, she said finally. Good luck with that. She stormed upstairs, and I heard her on the phone, probably calling Damien. I didn't care. Phase 1 of my revenge was complete, and I was just getting started. The next morning, I drove to downtown Millbrook and parked outside the Blue Lantern, the local dive bar where all the gossip in town eventually ended up. It was 10 a.m., but there were already 3 regulars at the bar nursing beers and solving the world's problems. I ordered a coffee and struck up a conversation with Mickey, the bartender who'd been serving drinks and collecting secrets for 30 years. Mickey, you know everyone in this town, right? Pretty much. Why? What do you know about Damien Cross? Mickey's expression darkened. That pretty boy security guard? He's trouble, Eli. Bad news all around. How so? He's been bragging to anyone who'll listen about his conquest. Says he's got some married woman wrapped around his finger and he's going to take her for everything she's worth. My hands clenched around my coffee mug. He said that? Last Friday night, right here at this bar. Said the husband was a sucker who didn't know what was coming. Real classy guy. Did he mention any names? Mickey looked uncomfortable. Eli, I don't like to spread gossip. This isn't gossip, Mickey. This is my life, he sighed. He mentioned your wife, said she was easy pickings and that you were too stupid to see what was happening right under your nose. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. Bad enough that my wife was cheating on me, but to have the whole town know about it, to have them laughing at me behind my back, that was unforgivable. Thanks for telling me, Mickey. What are you going to do? I stood up and left a 5 on the bar. I'm going to make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of people they really are. Saturday night at the Blue Lantern was always busy. Half the town showed up to drink away their problems and catch up on the latest gossip. It was the perfect venue for what I had planned. I arrived at 8 p.m. and took a seat at the bar. Mickey nodded at me and poured my usual. Whiskey, neat. The place was packed with familiar faces. Construction workers from the highway project, nurses from the hospital, teachers from the high school. All of them potential witnesses to what was about to happen. Lou arrived 10 minutes later, followed by Mrs. Falco's nephew Danny, who worked at the auto parts store. I'd spent the afternoon spreading the word about tonight's entertainment, and the audience was gathering nicely. At 8:30, right on schedule, Jenna and Damien walked through the door. The conversation in the bar didn't stop immediately, but it definitely quieted. Everyone was watching, sensing that something was about to happen. Jenna looked nervous. She rarely came to the Blue Lantern, and never with her book club friend. Damien, on the other hand, strutted in like he owned the place. He was wearing a tight black t-shirt that showed off his gym muscles and jeans that probably cost more than I made in a week. Everything about him screamed, "Look at me," and tonight, everyone was definitely looking. They found a table in the corner and ordered drinks. Jenna kept glancing around nervously, but Damien was playing it cool, one arm draped over the back of her chair like he was marking his territory. I waited until they were settled, then stood up and walked over to their table. "Well, well," I said loudly enough for half the bar to hear. "If it isn't my wife and her book club friend." Jenna's face went pale. "Eli, what are you doing here?" "Having a drink in my local bar. The question is, what are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be at Sasha's house tonight, discussing literature." Damien stood up, all 6 feet of manufactured intimidation. "Is there a problem here, buddy?" "No problem at all," I said, looking around the bar. "I just wanted to introduce everyone to Damien Cross, the security guard who's been screwing my wife for the past 3 months. The bar went dead silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned toward our table. Jenna looked like she wanted to disappear through the floor. "You're out of line," Damien said, stepping closer to me. "Am I? Let me tell you what's out of line, Damien. Out of line is bragging to Mickey here about your conquest. Out of line is calling me a sucker who doesn't know what's happening in his own house. Out of line is planning to steal my wife and my money while laughing about it with your drinking buddies." Damien's face flushed red. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I pulled out my phone and opened the recovered text messages. "Should I read some of these texts out loud? I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your romantic afternoon plans and your opinions about my intelligence." "Eli, please," Jenna whispered. "Can we talk about this at home?" "Home?" I laughed. "You mean The house where you've been entertaining your boyfriend while I'm at work? The house where Mrs. Falco has been watching you through the windows like your own personal reality show? A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Mrs. Falco was legendary in Millbrook for her neighborhood surveillance activities. Damien had heard enough. He grabbed my shirt and pulled me close. You need to shut your mouth right now. Or what? You'll beat me up in front of 30 witnesses? That would look great on your security guard resume. He shoved me backward, and I stumbled but didn't fall. Lou immediately stepped forward, but I waved him off. This was my show. Go ahead, Damien, I said. Show everyone what a tough guy you are. Beat up the husband of the woman you're screwing. I'm sure that'll really impress her. Stop it, Jenna hissed. Both of you, just stop it. Why should I stop? I asked. Everyone in town already knows what's going on. Mickey, tell them what Damien said about Jenna last Friday night. Mickey looked uncomfortable, but he spoke up. He said she was easy pickings. Said her husband was too stupid to figure out what was happening. More murmurs from the crowd. Jenna buried her face in her hands. And here's the best part, I continued, my voice carrying across the silent bar. My loving wife is pregnant. Congratulations, Damien. You're going to be a daddy. Damien's expression changed from anger to confusion. What? Oh, she didn't tell you? She's been planning to pin the baby on me, take me for everything in the divorce, and ride off into the sunset with you. Except there's one tiny problem with her plan. I paused for dramatic effect, looking around the room at all the eager faces. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that bar. Jenna's head snapped up, her eyes wide with terror. That's impossible, she whispered. Is it? Dr. Martinez at the clinic has all the paperwork. Want me to call him? Damien was staring at Jenna like he'd never seen her before. You told me you weren't sleeping with him anymore. I wasn't. I mean, we weren't. Then whose baby is it? Damien demanded. Jenna's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She couldn't answer without admitting to yet another affair, and we all knew it. This is getting interesting, someone called out from the back of the bar. Shut up, Jenna screamed, finally losing control. All of you, just shut up! She grabbed her purse and ran for the door. Damien stood there for a moment, looking like his world had just collapsed, then followed her out. The bar erupted in conversation. Everyone was talking at once, rehashing what they'd just witnessed, speculating about whose baby Jenna was carrying, and generally having the time of their lives. Lou clapped me on the shoulder. That was beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. Mickey poured me another whiskey. This one's on the house. I raised my glass to the room. To the truth, I said. It always comes out eventually. The crowd cheered, and I drank my whiskey, feeling better than I had in months. But this was just the beginning. I had one more card to play, and it was going to be the best one yet. The divorce papers arrived Monday morning, hand-delivered by a process server who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Jenna was asking for everything. The house, the business, alimony, and child support for a baby that definitely wasn't mine. Her lawyer was Robert Steinberg, the most expensive divorce attorney in the county. How she was paying for him was a mystery. But I had my suspicions. Damien's SUV had been conspicuously absent from the shopping plaza parking lot since Saturday night. My lawyer was Jennifer Walsh, a scrappy public defender who'd recently gone into private practice. She was young, hungry, and worked for about a tenth of what Steinberg charged. This is going to be interesting, Jennifer said as she reviewed Jenna's demands. She's asking for child support, but you say the baby isn't yours? Definitely not mine. I have the medical records to prove it. Then this should be straightforward. We'll demand a paternity test, and when it comes back negative, her whole case falls apart. I want to do this publicly, I said. Court hearing, not a private settlement. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. Most people want to keep these things quiet. Most people haven't been humiliated in front of the entire town. I want everyone to see the truth. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at the Millbrook County Courthouse. Word spread quickly through town. Divorce proceedings were usually private affairs, but this one was going to be a public spectacle. Thursday night, I got a call from Jenna. It was the first time we'd spoken since the confrontation at the Blue Lantern. Eli, we need to talk. Talk to my lawyer. Please, this has gotten out of hand. Maybe we can work something out. Work something out? You mean like when you worked out screwing Damien in our bed? Or when you worked out stealing my business and my house? I never meant for it to happen this way. Which part, the cheating, the lying, or the fraud? There was a long pause. The baby isn't Damien's, she said finally. I know. The question is, whose is it? Another pause. It doesn't matter. We can still make this work. You could raise the child as your own, and we could try to fix our marriage. I almost laughed. Jenna, I wouldn't trust you to water my plants, let alone raise another man's child. I'll see you in court tomorrow. Friday morning arrived gray and rainy, which seemed appropriate for the occasion. The courthouse was packed. Apparently half of Millbrook had decided to attend the proceedings. Mrs. Falco was in the front row, along with Mickey from the Blue Lantern and at least a dozen other familiar faces. Jenna arrived with her lawyer, looking pale and nervous. She was wearing a conservative blue dress and had her hair pulled back in a bun, trying to look like the wronged wife. But everyone in that courtroom knew better. Judge Patricia Hanley was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd been handling family court for 20 years. She'd seen every kind of divorce drama imaginable, and her expression suggested she wasn't in the mood for games. This is a hearing regarding the divorce petition filed by Jenna Bishop against Elliot Bishop, she announced. Mrs. Bishop is seeking dissolution of marriage, division of assets, alimony, and child support. Mr. Bishop is contesting these claims. Steinberg stood up, looking confident in his expensive suit. Your Honor, my client has been abandoned by her husband during her pregnancy. She's seeking reasonable support for herself and her unborn child, as well as her fair share of the marital assets. Mr. Bishop, Judge Hanley said, how do you respond to these claims? Jennifer stood up. Your Honor, my client disputes paternity of the child in question. We have medical evidence that proves Mr. Bishop cannot be the father. A murmur went through the courtroom. Jenna's face went white. What kind of medical evidence? The judge asked. Mr. Bishop underwent a vasectomy 3 years ago, Your Honor. We have the medical records and are prepared to provide DNA evidence if necessary. Steinberg looked like he'd been punched. He leaned over to whisper urgently with Jenna, who was shaking her head frantically. Your Honor, Steinberg said, we request a brief recess to consult with our client. Denied, Judge Hanley said curtly. Mrs. Bishop, did you know about your husband's vasectomy? Jenna stood up slowly. I thought the doctors said it wasn't 100% effective. It's 99.9% effective, Jennifer said. The odds of pregnancy after a successful vasectomy are less than 1 in 1,000. And you're claiming this child is your husband's? The judge asked. Jenna's mouth opened and closed without sound. The courtroom was dead silent, everyone waiting for her answer. Finally, she whispered, Yes. Then you won't object to a paternity test? That's when everything fell apart. Jenna started crying, not the delicate tears of a wronged wife, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone whose lies had finally caught up with her. I can't do this, she said between sobs. I can't keep lying. Steinberg tried to stop her, but it was too late. The dam had burst. The baby isn't Eli's, she said. It's not Damien's either. It's my boss's. From the conference in Albany. I was drunk, and it just happened, and I thought I could make it work, thought I could fix everything, but it all went wrong. The courtroom erupted. Judge Hanley banged her gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order, but the damage was done. Jenna had just admitted to adultery, fraud, and attempted paternity deception in front of half the town. Mrs. Bishop, the judge said sternly, are you withdrawing your claims for child support? Yes, Jenna whispered. And are you admitting that your claims were fraudulent? Steinberg tried to object, but Jenna nodded. Yes. Judge Hanley looked disgusted. Mr. Bishop, do you wish to proceed with the divorce? Yes, Your Honor. Very well. Given the admitted adultery and fraudulent claims, I'm granting Mr. Bishop's petition for divorce. Mrs. Bishop will receive no alimony, no claim on the business, and will be responsible for her own legal fees. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the silent courtroom. Then the silence broke, and everyone started talking at once. I stood up, feeling like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Lou was grinning from ear to ear, and Mrs. Falco was practically bouncing in her seat. Jenna was still crying, but now she was alone. Steinberg had packed up his briefcase and left without another word. Her friends Sasha and Qley were nowhere to be seen. Apparently, loyalty only went so far. As I walked toward the exit, Jenna grabbed my arm. Eli, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about everything. I looked down at her, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, this stranger who'd tried to destroy my life. I'm not, I said. This is the best thing that ever happened to me. I walked out of that courthouse into the gray morning, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. That afternoon, the whole town was buzzing with news of the courthouse drama. My phone rang constantly with congratulations, offers to buy me drinks, and requests for details. I'd become something of a local celebrity overnight. Lou and I celebrated at the Blue Lantern, which was packed despite it being 3 in the afternoon. Mickey had apparently been giving play-by-play accounts of the hearing to anyone who'd listen, complete with dramatic reenactments. To Eli Bishop, Mickey announced as we walked in, the man who proved that the truth always wins. The bar erupted in cheers. Someone bought me a beer, someone else bought me a shot, and before I knew it, I was holding court like a conquering hero. "So what happens now?" asked Danny from the auto parts store. "Now I get my life back," I said. "The house is mine, the business is mine, and I'm free to start over." "What about Jenna? What about her? She made her choices, and now she gets to live with the consequences." As if summoned by our conversation, the door opened and Damien walked in. The bar went quiet, all eyes on the man who'd been publicly humiliated along with my ex-wife. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was messy, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't slept in days. He walked straight to the bar, ignoring the stares and whispers. "Whiskey," he told Mickey. "Make it a double." "You sure you want to be here?" Mickey asked quietly. "Why not? My life's already over. Might as well drink to it." I felt a moment of something that might have been pity. Damien had been played just as much as I had in his own way. Jenna had lied to both of us, used both of us, and left both of us looking like fools. But then I remembered him calling me a sucker, bragging about his conquest, planning to take everything I'd worked for. The pity evaporated. "Rough week?" I asked, loud enough for the whole bar to hear. Damien turned to look at me, his eyes red-rimmed and angry. "You think this is funny?" "Actually, yeah, I think it's hilarious. She played you too, you know? Made you look like an idiot in front of the whole town." "Maybe. But I'm not the one who got fired from his job for screwing around during work hours. I'm not the one who everyone's laughing at for falling for a married woman's lies. And I'm definitely not the one who's going to be known forever as the guy who couldn't tell when his girlfriend was pregnant with someone else's baby." Damien's face flushed red. "You son of a bitch." "Careful, Damien. You're already the town joke. Don't make it worse by starting a fight you can't win." He stood up, fists clenched, but Lou stepped between us. "Sit down," Lou said quietly. "You don't want to do this." Damien looked at Lou, all 250 pounds of him, and apparently decided discretion was the better part of valor. He threw a 20 on the bar and stalked out. The bar erupted in laughter and applause. "That was cold, Eli," someone called out. "But fair." I raised my beer. "To justice served." The celebration continued until well after midnight. By the time I finally made it home, I was pleasantly drunk and completely satisfied with how the day had gone. The house felt different now. It was mine, completely and legally mine. No more lies, no more secrets, no more walking on eggshells around someone who was planning to destroy me. I poured myself one more whiskey and sat in my recliner, looking around the living room where Jenna had entertained her boyfriend while I was at work. Tomorrow I'd start redecorating, erasing every trace of her betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment I thought it might be Jenna, but it was from Jennifer Walsh, my lawyer. "Congratulations on your victory today." Jenna's lawyer called. "She wants to discuss a settlement for her personal belongings. Let me know how you want to handle it." I smiled and typed back, "Tell her she can have whatever fits in one suitcase. Everything else stays with the house." It was petty maybe, but after everything she'd put me through, I figured I was entitled to a little pettiness. Another text came in, this one from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You ruined my life. Jenna," texting from someone else's phone. I deleted the message without responding. As far as I was concerned, it was over. She was someone else's problem now. I finished my whiskey and headed upstairs to bed. My bed, in my house, with no lies and no betrayals waiting for me in the morning. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. ## epilogue, the new beginning. 6 months later, Millbrook had moved on to other scandals and other gossip, but the legend of the vasectomy bombshell lived on. I'd become something of a folk hero, the man who'd outsmarted his cheating wife and exposed her lies in the most public way possible. Bishop's Movers was thriving. Word of mouth about my story had brought in new customers, and Lou and I had hired 2 more employees and bought a 3rd truck. Apparently, People liked doing business with someone who'd proven he could handle adversity. Jenna had left town shortly after the divorce was finalized. Last I heard, she was living in Albany with her baby and working as a receptionist somewhere. Damien had also disappeared, though rumors placed him in Florida, working security at a retirement community. Mrs. Falco still kept watch over the neighborhood, but now she was looking out for me instead of spying on me. She'd taken it upon herself to screen potential girlfriends, though I wasn't quite ready for that yet. The Blue Lantern had a new regular customer, me. Mickey had framed the newspaper clipping about the divorce hearing and hung it behind the bar, right next to the photo of the town's high school football championship from 1987. I was sitting at that same bar on a Friday evening, nursing a beer and reading the sports section, when Jennifer Walsh walked in. "Buy a girl a drink?" she asked, sliding onto the bar stool next to me. "Sure, what's the occasion?" "I just closed the biggest case of my career thanks to the publicity from your divorce. Thought I'd celebrate where it all started." Mickey poured her a glass of wine, and we toasted to new beginnings. "Any regrets?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment, looking around the bar at the familiar faces, thinking about my house and my business and my future. "Just one," I said. "What's that?" "I should have gotten that vasectomy sooner." Jennifer laughed, and I realized that for the first time since this whole mess started, I was genuinely happy. Not satisfied, not vindicated, but actually happy. Revenge, as it turned out, was a dish best served publicly, with plenty of witnesses and a side of poetic justice. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it came with a happy ending. I raised my beer to the room, to the town that had supported me, to the friends who'd stood by me, and to the future that was finally mine to control. "Here's to the truth," I said, "and to the sweet taste of victory." The bar erupted in cheers, just like it had 6 months ago, and I knew that no matter what happened next, I'd never forget the night I dropped the vasectomy bombshell and won my life back. Some stories end with the hero riding off into the sunset. This one ended with the hero buying another round and planning his next move. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better ending than that.